Best way to be upon the interwebs.
There we are. So for this show, Wits End, you're going to kick it off. I believe I am going to close it. That's an affirmative. And
does Land Monkey have a lower third? Or is it?
Yes, he does. He just needs to go turn it on. I'll turn it on while you're
okay.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Pay no attention to that man behind the lower third.
Yeah.
Or not behind the lower third.
Okay, I will hit the recorder, play some music, and we'll start this thing. Here we go.
You know what time it is? It's time for caching in the Northwest. And welcome to the only podcast dedicated to geocaching in the Great Pacific Northwest. Tonight we'll talk about caches and caches unique to this little corner of the country. So get ready to play by the rules. It's time to go caching in the Northwest.
And if we're talking about rules, we must bring in our rule-following primate. Some say he can't drive on sand. Another says he refuses to accept miles as a legitimate measure of distance. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight, whether you're joining us live and participating in the Q&A, or whether you are listening to us pre-recorded and bouncing your head like a silly person at the bus stop. We are glad you're here. Even if you're not bouncing your head like a silly person at the bus stop, we're still glad you're here. And folks, amongst the things that we are thankful for, we're going to tell you all how to be thankful and how to make your reviewer thankful. And to speak specifically about what things make reviewers thankful, we have invited reviewer Wizard of Ooze to join us. So thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Look forward to chatting with you tonight.
We're looking forward to it, too. Thanks for coming along. And for the returning listeners, you know, we love hearing from you about your favorite caches and caching locations, of course, in the Northwest. We love to hear about them in your own voice each week right here on the podcast. You know, there's a voicemail tool on cachingandw.com that you can use to send us your favorite cache. And, hey, we'll play it on the podcast very, very soon. It doesn't need to be a long message. 15 seconds should cover your name, GC code, the name of the cache, and, of course, why you liked it and favorited it. And we like to have our guests talk about their favorite Northwest cache when they join us. So, Laurie, Wizard of Ooze, what's your favorite Northwest cache?
Well, one I was thinking about this afternoon is when I found, it's been about 10 years ago, over in the Okanagan in Washington. GC number is GCGVHM, and it's a classic that a lot of the old-time cachers would know by the name China Wall. It's way out in the middle of nowhere, but you can drive to it with pretty much any kind of a 4x4 rig. And the thing that's very cool about this one is it's once you get to the location, there's a wall there that somebody 100 years ago or something quarried out of local granite blocks, just huge, huge blocks, stacked up probably 150 feet tall. And lots of theories on why that thing is out there, but apparently the most accurate one is that it was originally planned to be an entrance portal to a copper mine on the hillside behind it that never actually got off the ground. But very, very cool place to just see this massive structure out there in the middle of nowhere.
That sounds very cool. Thank you for sharing that. All right, folks. Well, we also want to share with you that December 13th, mark that date on your calendar. Your Caching in the Northwest crew, along with all your favorite geocaching podcasters are going to be on a geocaching podcast extraordinaire. Make sure to join us as we talk geocaching, podcasting, and more assorted topics. I am sure beer will be amongst those topics. It's going to be a great show, and you don't want to miss it. You can find it at cacheandrelease.com/live. That's right. It's hosted by our good friends at the Cache and Release Geocaching Podcast.
That's right. You know, Michael Miller has been working on this, so I want to say even a couple of months now, trying to get all these geocachers together, geocaching podcasters together. It's like herding cats. And, you know, we're all going to be on. It's going to be a 2-hour show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So maybe, you know, this is something you want to stop in on. It's on a Sunday. It's on a different day. Did I say it was going to be 2 hours long? Because it's going to be about 2 hours long. So.
No, you didn't. How long is it going to be?
Well, I think it's going to be about 2 hours, yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Speaking about hours, in the news, you know, we talked about this for the last several weeks just because, well, it's news and it affects geocaching in one way or another. After about 130 hours, Seattle's iconic gum wall has been cleaned. The gum filled, get this, folks, 94 one-gallon buckets. 94 one-gallon buckets, which weighed a total of 2,350 pounds. That's 1.175 tons of somebody's pre-chewed gum.
Now, did they have 94 individual buckets all lined up, or was this overtime buckets?
I have no idea. No idea, and I didn't want to be the guy, shoveling the gum into a 1-gallon bucket. But in the show notes,
1-gallon bucket. Could they not get bigger buckets?
They didn't have any 5-gallon buckets.
Yeah.
Couldn't they come up with one 94-gallon bucket? I don't know. There is a time lapse that shows the work, these 130 hours, in just 30 seconds. That'll be in the show notes.
That might be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that are Gumwall fans, you'll want to be sure to check out the geocaching event that was just published. Coming up on December 8th, it's GC 6709D. It's called Gum One, Gum All. Let's rebuild the gum wall. Some of the Groundspeak lackeys put this thing together, and it's on a Thursday afternoon, about 4 o'clock. You're invited to bring a friend and some gum and start rebuilding the gum wall so we can get another cache up there sooner than later.
That's amazing. Yeah, so once there's enough camouflage on the wall, the gum cache will return. That's the double bubble toil and trouble. So if you're in the area on December 8th, stop by the Gum One, Gum All. Let's rebuild the gum wall. That's a clever name. I like that one. It's GC 6709D.
Well, there you go, folks. If you would like to masticate and publicly share that, there's your opportunity. All right. So let's see if we can change our show rating tonight. Okay. Folks, let's now turn our attention away from public mastication to the season of thankfulness. And while us in Canada have had our Thanksgiving, it's coming soon for our American listeners. And amongst the things that we are thankful for on this show is those who volunteer their time in various ways to make geocaching a fun experience for everyone. So tonight, let's talk about the volunteers who work to make sure geocaches are placed and maintained in a way that benefits everyone. Those folks are known as the reviewers. So, Wizard of Ooze, if there was one thing that geocachers could do that would make reviewers thankful, what would that one thing be?
I think that question can be answered pretty succinctly by saying, read the guidelines. The guidelines are not just a boilerplate terms of use kind of thing that you check off on software agreements. they actually have really helpful stuff in there, and they're updated on a pretty regular basis, sometimes several times a year, to keep up to date with changes to the game and changes to the number of people that are playing the game. So if you are planning on submitting a new cache, don't assume that the cache that you placed a year ago is a suitable template for what you're going to be placing now. Go back and just take a few minutes and read through those and make sure everything is up to snuff with the current guidelines, and your reward for that will likely be that your cache will be published much quicker and with a lot less hassle than if you forget to take those steps to just check and make sure everything's up to date.
All right. Well, that's really great advice, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that for the most part, geocachers really want to play by the rules, so it makes perfect sense to go out and make sure to refresh yourself and know just what those rules are. So let's just assume that people that, well, place a cache that doesn't quite meet the guidelines are doing so accidentally and making a mistake, making an error. What's the most common mistake that cachers might make when they are submitting a new cache to geocaching.com?
I think that would have to be just basic typographical errors. A lot of people will have a whole bunch of coordinates stored in their GPS or their phone, and they get home and, oh, that's got to be the one there, and they'll type it in, and but they won't check it against one of the maps that are so helpfully provided on the geocache submission page. They just assume that it's correct. And when we as the reviewers open up those caches to look at them, the cache will be out in Puget Sound or in the Straits of out out in the ocean someplace. Quite often we'll see them in China or Inner Mongolia, because that's east coordinates instead of west, as somebody forgets to check off the right location. So just take a second to click on one of those map links and make sure that you've got the cache in the right spot before you send it in, because that can delay your cache getting re-reviewed and published for several days as it goes back to the bottom of the pile.
Nice. So all these times I've been digging holes, I thought I've been digging to China, but I'm actually digging to Inner Mongolia. That's what I got to remember next time I'm digging fence posts.
Yes. To be specifically accurate. Actually, that's interesting. If a cache is posted at coordinates that are in China, how would a reviewer for the NorthWest know about it?
Well, the caches are directed to the location that is specified when they fill it out. They would click Washington or BC in the case of the ones that I happen to review, even though the coordinates may be elsewhere. So when we open up that page, it'll say Washington, but when you look at the map, it's obviously the Gobi Desert or something that's way off base or out in the water someplace. So we have to then send it back and remind people that they need to recheck their location, or maybe they just typed in the numbers incorrectly. So.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Well, and segue there to our next question. You're speaking of some of the tools that the reviewers are using to check on the caches. As a reviewer, sorry, blah blah. As a reviewer, do you have access to tools that the normal geocacher does not?
We have a few goodies in our toolkit that do help us, but I'm sworn to secrecy. If I had to disclose those to you, I'd have to kill everybody that's listening in. So that could get a little messy. But suffice to say that we do have a few goodies in our toolbox that we can use, but mostly what we have available is pretty much the same stuff that everybody has on their cache page when it's submitted, in terms of map links and proximity locations and that kind of thing. So it's there's not a lot of, not nearly as many goodies as people suspect that we might have to work with.
That's interesting. I mean, it's kind of that magic that happens behind the curtain.
Mhm.
So, Wiz, what do you actually have to do to approve a new cache hide?
Well, there's kind of a little sequence of steps that each of us follow. We all have little different ways of working through it, but when I look at a new cache, the first thing that I'll check on is to make sure that it's not too close to another existing cache or a waypoint of a multi-cache, for example, that I'm sure everybody knows. If not, you should know that caches need to be at least 1/10 of a mile away from other existing caches. That's 528 feet or 161 meters. So if that checks out, then I usually go to the Google Maps, take a look at both the satellite view and the street view to kind of familiarize myself with more specifically where the location is. And oftentimes I can then spot if there might be an issue with the cache being placed too close to school grounds or railroad tracks, government building like a jail or a courthouse or something like that. Those are all locations that our guidelines don't allow caches to be placed on or near. And if I happen to see that there's one or more archived caches that are listed at the same coordinates or very close to it, I'll usually take a quick look at that as well to see if there might be a reason that the previous cache was archived. For example, if the property owner said, I don't want caches there anymore, or something like that, that's a good way to avoid having a repeat confrontation of the same cache at the same location with the same results.
That makes a lot of sense. I assume you have an overlay then that shows all caches, whether active, archived, or not.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have access to, but that makes a lot of sense. What about a multi-cache? Is that a significantly different process? Does every stage of a multi-cache have to be 1/10 of a mile away from any other cache, or 161 meters for the Canadian fellows?
If they are physical waypoints, physical waypoint being something that a location where the cache owner has actually placed some sort of container or object, could be an engraved dog tag or an ammo can or anything in between. Those waypoints need to be that same distance, 1/10 of a mile away from any other physical locations of other caches. However, in the same multi-cache, somebody could place waypoints 3 feet apart if they wanted to, or a mile apart. There's a lot of flexibility with the multi-caches in terms of placement between the waypoints of that cache. So each physical location of a multi-cache does need to be checked just like a regular cache would. So it takes a little bit more time, especially if there's 15 waypoints. We've got to look at each one of them to make sure they're not too close to other caches or other issues with the locations. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same process.
Nice. This is all good information, because we really don't know what it takes to get caches published. Now, I've heard of cache owners wanting a cache or a series of caches to be published at a certain time, and obviously there has to be a tool for that, right? It can't be done manually.
Well, most of it is actually done manually. It's everyone assumes that things are synced up within the reviewer's tools, and that's one of the areas that really is not. It's generally we would set up a bookmark list of the caches that need to be are requested to be published at a specific time. And we do have a bulk publishing tool that we can use through that bookmark list. But there aren't a lot of other neat little widgets that we can use to accomplish that. So when we have somebody that asks us to publish one cache every 30 minutes starting at midnight going through to 6 a.m., we'll kind of go back and say, we're probably going to be asleep at that point. Could you be a little bit more flexible on the timing for us, please? So let's keep that in mind when you're submitting caches, that we do tend to enjoy our sleep and our family holiday dinners and things like everybody else does.
Exactly. Well, it's good to know you can work with your reviewer and get the caches, published maybe close to what you were looking for. That's nice.
Exactly. We do try to accommodate everybody as much as we can.
So let's talk about puzzle caches for a moment. How much information do you ask for? For example, do you ask for the process to solve the puzzle when they submit the cache?
Well, gosh, Chris, I guess you haven't taken a look at the guidelines lately. One of the more recent updates on the guidelines now requires that a puzzle cache have the basic steps of solving the particular puzzle spelled out in a reviewer note when it's submitted. Anything that's posted in a reviewer note is automatically deleted when the cache is published. So you don't need to worry about accidentally giving away the spoilers for your puzzle, but we do need to see that information on the puzzle pages. That's something that we would send back if it's not on there, and ask for that to be added before we can continue the review of the cache.
That's pretty interesting. So based on that, fairly recent change to the guidelines, would you as a reviewer, or would any reviewer, reject a puzzle cache that is either too complex or you determine is too obscure to solve?
Oh, not at all. That's that's not our role. Our role in this puzzle cache reviews is just to make sure that there is actually a way to solve it, that somebody's not just submitting kind of a bogus puzzle that there's impossible to be solved with the information that they provided. So it's they can be as fiendish as they want to, but there does have to be some way that it can be solved.
If we email you and tell you that we think it's too hard, can you archive it?
I'll give you my PayPal address.
Oh, okay. So now we found the inside source. No. We have live Q&A, and we've got listeners on here, and they ask questions all the time. So here's a question from Wet Coaster, and let me preface it a little bit. Wet Coaster spends sometimes many months away from his home location while he's working. So he asked, any tips for someone who wants to place a cache in a location that's not near where they live? Vacation caches come to mind, but also someone who's working away from home for an extended time and wants to place a new cache.
Sure. That's a good question. In kind of a vacation area where we live in the Northwest, lots of people do tend to come for a visit and say, oh, it's so nice here, let's place a cache and remember our visit by. What we look for as reviewers is either that somebody would be visiting the location on a fairly regular basis, typically maybe every 6 to 8 weeks throughout the year, so that an annual visit, for example, to a particular location would not be an adequate number of opportunities for somebody to maintain a cache if it went missing or needed some attention. If they are not going to be visiting that location often enough, then the other option is to work with a local geocacher who would be willing to take over the maintenance during the time that the individual that owns it is not there. And if that's the case, we do need to have their profile name so we can get in touch with them. And then the last option is that they could ask a family member or a local friend or something to look after the cache in their absence. And if that's the case, the guidelines do ask that we obtain name and contact information, typically an email address for that person, rather
So that
than just...
could be a non-geocacher. I have a sister that lives in Southern California. If I wanted to place a cache there, and she's not a cacher, although she tolerates my caching when I visit her.
Sure.
I could give you her email address with her permission and have her maintain a cache that I might place down there.
Exactly. Yeah. That is.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that is the third option. That we do need to have. You can't just say, "Oh, my friend Billy is going to look after it." We do need to have some way to get in touch with that person to let them know that there's a need for some maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Don't lose Billy's number.
I was going to ask, how do those rules apply with respect to earth caches? Is it the same rules?
No, it's not. Earth caches can be, it's my understanding anyway, that they can be placed anywhere since there is no physical container there. They can be placed anywhere in the world by anybody. But earth caches are a whole separate beast that are reviewed and published by specific earth cache reviewers, so we really don't get into that too much.
Great, thank you.
So Wet Coaster replies in the Q&A. He says, I have a couple of cachers in Edmonton who will do the maintenance for me. So he'll place a cache. Somebody will jump in on maintenance. So that's nice. So getting back to hiding a cache, filling out the web page, what do the guidelines say about hints? I've seen cache owners that only offer hints after a DNF has been posted.
The guidelines actually have a little paragraph or two about hints that's useful, and it reminds cache owners that the hints are designed to be something that is going to be useful to somebody when they're at the location and can't find the cache. So posting something in the hint like it's too easy for a hint, or no hint needed, or your example will only give you a hint after you've posted a DNF are not helpful at that point to somebody who is searching for your cache. So in that case, it's really better to just leave the hint field blank, and then if you find later on that a lot of people are having trouble finding the cache, you can always go back in later and edit your cache page after it's been published to add more information to the description or to add a hint.
So doing something that drives me absolutely nuts because I think it's a waste of everybody's time, rant, such as typing no hint necessary in the hint field is not going to get your cache rejected by the reviewer like it should.
Like it should.
If we're not busy, we normally send those back and ask them to reconsider it. If we're looking at 278 caches in the queue, sometimes we'll kind of let those slide just to try to churn through the numbers that are sitting there waiting for us to be reviewed.
Fair enough, Wiz. I'm just ranting a little bit.
Does it ever go back and review the cache after it's published and say you changed that hint? No.
Sometimes especially with new geocachers that have submitted their first cache or two, I know a lot of reviewers will put them on a watch list for a while and just kind of make sure that everything's working out. Send them the cache owner a little note saying, good job. It looks like everybody's having a good time finding your cache, or if there's problems, like everybody's saying, ooh, the coordinates are way off, we can kind of give them a little hint of how to do a coordinate update log for their cache to make it more successful. So
Nice. Now you talked about guidelines, and I noticed that, well, relatively speaking, recent changes have been made to event caches. Can you maybe summarize in a nutshell what the latest guidelines are for events?
sure. Just a couple of changes. Most everybody's familiar with the basics of an event. A couple of things that have been recently added to the guidelines to keep in mind when you're submitting an event is that both the starting and the ending time of an event now needs to be published. And it's certainly perfectly okay to take a guess. You don't need to kick everybody out the door at 8 o'clock, but at least that kind of will give people an idea of whether or not, if they're running a little late, if anybody will still be there. And the second fairly significant change is that the 15-minute flash mob is no more. Minimum length of time now for an event is 30 minutes. So that's those are pretty much the two changes that sometimes people aren't familiar with if they haven't submitted an event for a while.
Has there ever actually been a 15-minute flash mob? Anyways, speaking of time, here's a question. In an average week, if there is such a thing as an average week for a reviewer, how many caches do you evaluate and publish?
Well, it varies obviously from busy times of the year. Spring and summer is our big push. Wintertime is when we get a little bit of extra time to catch our breath and catch up on some of the other aspects of reviewing, like checking on caches that have been missing for a long time. But generally, I probably personally publish around 100 caches a week on an average through a year's time, and then there's probably another 100 or so every week that I will send back for various reasons with questions, or to let the owner know that there's proximity issues and so on that never actually ever get finally resubmitted and published. So it's I noticed recently I've been reviewing for about 5.5 years now, and my ticker went over 20,000 caches published in that time. So that's a lot a lot of caches.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is a lot of caches. Well, I'm just thinking if you're estimating about 100 or so a week, and just from what I see getting published in the general very north Washington, southwest BC area that I keep an eye on, that's probably pretty close to what I'm seeing in a weekly, monthly average, and that's an awful lot of caches over a year.
Well, when you multiply that by 3 other reviewers for BC and 4 other reviewers for Washington, that's a very significant number of containers out there in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and for all those different reviewers, approximately how many hours per week would you say are devoted per reviewer to the game?
I think probably a reasonable conservative estimate is probably 10 or 15 hours a week per reviewer for our area, at least. Sometimes during the spring and summer, when there are lots of events going on and lots of activity, it can easily go over 20 hours a week. That's a major commitment to be a reviewer, but it's a lot of fun.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have more in the Q&A getting back to events. This one comes from Three Hams and a Rose. He says, are events only D1T1? I'm looking at Iona Jetty Point event, trying to be a D5, then T5.
This is something that Groundspeak has been trying to sort of keep a little closer tabs on. Normally, an event, unless there is some really significant reason, does need to be D1, T1, if it's a meet and greet at a park or a coffee shop or something like that. The Iona Point Jetty event was had some specific issues that I really don't want to get into here, but I think it was finally resolved that it was a terrain 3 with a difficulty 1, as I recall, which is about reasonable for the length of the hike to get out to the end of the point. So it's the idea of using an event to fill in a grid is something that they're really kind of trying to avoid. With an event that's 3.5 difficulty and 2.5 terrain kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think I've seen those. But if you're having a get together on top of Mount Rainier, then you qualify for a D5 T5. But
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you brought up an interesting point. You mentioned you're volunteering in Washington State and the British Columbia region. Is that by choice, or was it assigned to you? And you said you're working with other team members.
When I first started, I was asked to join the Washington team when there was an identified need there for some extra help. And about a year later, the reviewer that was then working British Columbia terrain territory was just getting kind of overloaded because he had several other regions as well that he was working in. And so I kind of discussed things with him and let him know that because I was familiar with BC and had traveled and lived in quite a bit of the province, that I would be a good person to take over there. And so I now kind of split my time half and half between BC and Washington. And it's I tell everybody I'm bilingual. I speak American and Canadian, and have 2 sets of templates that use the correct spelling and metric and imperial measurements and so on, depending on which half of the world I'm working on.
Whether the R comes before or after the E? Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice. One more question from the Q&A. This one comes from IHAM. He says, do you have time, with all that time spent reviewing, to actually get out and cache yourself?
Not as much as I'd like to. I used to spend a lot more time caching, and now I tend to spend more of my time helping other people create and fun caches and fun events. And my one big contribution to caching on my own during the year is my big annual event. For the last 13, 14 years, I guess now, I've held a big event in the fall, and had one about 6 weeks ago out at the beach, southwest corner of Washington, that was a big hit, and have big plans for repeating it again next year. So that's takes me 6 to 9 months to plan these and pull them off. So it's a big project, but it's a fun thing that people travel for hundreds of miles to attend.
And we even know people who cross borders. Yeah.
Yes. I think about a third of the people from that attended my event this year were from BC. So
Right.
That's incredible. Well,
Maybe
it was.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say maybe you need some more help in the reviewers. Is Groundspeak or geocaching.com looking for more reviewers? Can people apply for that?
people can always submit a kind of a letter of interest to Groundspeak that they would keep on file if there's a need that the other reviewers on the team identify. Gosh, we're working too hard. We need some more help. That those letters would be looked at as options for people who might be a suitable candidate to add to our reviewer team. And a lot of people will ask me, what do I need to do to become a reviewer? And the guidelines speak to that a little bit. Recommend that you know the guidelines yourself really well and are active in the community in terms of holding events and supporting local geocaching and just kind of being a good all-around ambassador for geocaching and that sort of thing to make sure that you've are participating in all aspects of
Sure.
geocaching in order to work yourself into possibly being a candidate. So.
Oh.
Nice. Well, this episode's running a little bit long, so where can we find out more? Where can our listeners find you out on the interwebs?
Well, I have a reviewer blog which has a lot of helpful information for Washington and BC cachers, and that is www.wizardofooze.com. And for those that might be interested in finding out more about plans for my upcoming event for 2016, this year's cache website, website is still up, and that will be updated starting early spring with details about next year's event. And that is at www.cache-splash.com.
Nice. And folks, if you didn't make it to Cache-Splash this year, you're going to want to go next year. It's really one of the highlights right here in the Northwest. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us tonight.
My pleasure.
We really do appreciate it. And we'll have you back on. You have an open invitation. Whenever you feel like you've got enough details you want people to know about your upcoming event, let me know and we'll have you on the show.
Sounds great.
So, gentlemen, where can we find you? Land Monkey, let's start with you. Where can we find you on the internet?
Oh, I was going to say, well, I'm in my basement.
Oh.
And I've got internet here, so.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay. Anyway, so, next, yeah, exactly. The website is landmonkey.blogspot.ca, and as always, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope at LandMonkeyGC, and on Facebook, Team LandMonkey, and on YouTube, I'll just search LandMonkey. There are all kinds of fun things going on the YouTube channel.
Nice. Well, you can find me, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, all at CachingNW. What about you, Wits End?
Likewise, I'm very simplistic, and I'm Wits End on pretty much as many things as I can be Wits End on, including Google.com had to add a US, so Google.com/+WitsEndUS, which mirrors the poorly built and rarely maintained witsend.us website.
Well, we want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. You can be part of the show. You can call 253-693-TFTC. Leave us a comment. Ask us a question. Remind us of the guidelines any time of the day or night. And, of course, you can email us at feedback@cachingnw.com. Also, your support helps keep quality shows coming. If you like the show, please click the PayPal button on the Caching NW website. The show's licensed under a Creative Commons Attributions 3.0 license, copyright 2015 by Chris Umfenauer. Thanks for sticking with us tonight, folks. Have a good evening. And we are clear of the recording. We're still on the internet, though. So, we have to be careful what we say.
Still on the internet, though, Land Monkey.
Not in your basement. Oh, let's see. We'll clear up some of the Q&A. Scott Burks is periscoping right now, apparently.
Who cares?
He's in Chicago. What does it matter?
That one was just for you, Scott.
Brylang was nice enough to put the
Thing?
web location. I want to say the coordinates, but that's not the word. It's not the right thing on the web coordinates
URL.
of the URL. Thank you. the web coordinates of the event coming up.
China Wall. No, that's China Wall.
Oh, that's China Wall. Sorry, yes, China
Yeah,
Wall.
I just went there. That's very, very cool.
How'd you get there so quickly?
Because I'm in my basement.
Oh, and the
It's
upcoming
larger on the inside
event,
than the outside.
which Die Monkey says is on a Tuesday, not a Thursday.
Right.
Three Ham says he's talking about the upcoming geocache podcaster extravaganza is a 2-hour event. It'll help the wait until Star Wars 7 more bearable.
Mm-hmm.
So if you bought early tickets and you're standing in line, you could re-listen to that episode.
Bobbing your head.
Or
Bobbing
listen
your
to it
head
for the
in
first
line.
time.
Oh, there you go.
Gotcha.
Wet Coaster, I think this was one of the best comments about the gum wall.
And
He
the buckets.
says it's not on his bucket list.
Yeah.
Get it? 94 buckets? It's probably not on his 1-gallon bucket list.
94 buckets of gum from the wall.
Oh.
Come on. Nobody was going to do that.
No, I didn't go there. 94 buckets of gum in the Land Monkey, do you understand this?
Yeah,
Uh,
I do.
Wait, Land Monkey can get out of the 192.168/16 network block?
yeah, sometimes.
Once in a while.
Well, yeah, because I'm actually on the 172.
There you go.
172.16?
Yeah. So
Well, and there's no place like 127.0.0.1.
nice.
Oh boy. Well, now we've broken into our networking segment of the show.
Or is it .0.0.0.1?
In the UK.
We got an ooh.
Yeah.
Right. And
referring to probably the gum, I guess.
it
That
has
was-
to be the gum. I
yeah.
mean, really, what else did we
Probably.
talk about that goes ooh?
Probably the 94 buckets of gum specifically.
Things that go.
And that song is only for beer, Land Monkey. Not 94 buckets of gum from the wall.
Meh.
Oh, and since I see IHAM is listening, I sent you a private DM on Twitter. Check it out. Let me know if you have the time. The rest
Well,
of you
of course
just
he
have
has the
Secret
time.
message.
Ooh.
private message. How about that?
Now we
DM.
all want to know.
Yeah, inquiring minds want to know.
Land Monkey, you'll appreciate this. 3Ham says the new camera angle of Land Monkeys makes him look more thuggish.
Well,
And really, who doesn't want to look more thuggish?
geocache podcasting, it's a thug's life.
Huh. What have I been missing out on?
Is it a hard knock life?
For me.
And B Pendragon says it's time for an upgrade.
What, to the gum wall? It's getting one.
It's getting one. I mean, really, the
Gum
old
wall.
they took the gum down because they thought the sugars may be eroding the bricks.
So let's put more on.
So, yeah,
You're calling him moron.
wouldn't the old gum that's up against the brick be so dried out that there is no chemical interaction?
I am not a gum chemist. Oh, ooh. I was just going to say I'm not a gum chemist. I could know, but you know what? One of our regular listeners and Q&A participants is a professor of chemistry.
Really?
So perhaps they can speak up at some point and let us know.
Well, Professor of Chemistry, we want to know, will the sugars in the gum actually help to
Break down the brick.
break down the brick?
Break down the wall. We're waiting.
We're holding. Send it to feedback@cachingnw.com.
There
We'll
you
put it on the next show.
Do some research. We'll put it on the next show.
We're looking for quality research.
Or research about quality. We're not
Either
picky.
way. Okay, folks. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll see you soon.
Fun as always.
Cache safely.
Good night.